I am live, even though I swear every time I come on live, I always say, like, I'm going to do this regularly, and then I don't. so, I don't have a lot of followers on YouTube anyway. So, I really just do the lives and then I go back and like upload them at other places. Anyway, I got a bit excited because I came across someone named Reverend Ike. The title of this, if you've seen it, is called Metaphysics and Religion. And I came across this pastor, a black pastor named Reverend Ike. He's since passed away. But I had got like a bit excited because in the sermons that he was preaching about, he was talking about he really preached around abundance and coming out of poverty and coming out of a poverty mindset, which I've always said that physical poverty is just a manifestation of mental and emotional poverty because it's true. There's only one answer for everything, and it's you. So whatever you are feeling on, excuse me, I feel like I put some black seed oil on my face, so I'm like shining everywhere. But anyway, so yeah, what we think in our minds and our hearts physically manifest. And the concept of this is extremely difficult for people to grasp. And I understand why, because nobody really wants to take accountability for their own circumstances. Like, it's much easier to look outside of yourself and place blame and say, like, oh, this is happening to me because of the government, because of racism, because of 400 years of oppression, because my mother did this to me as I was growing up, because my father wasn't there, because I lived, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And I call that, me and my husband call it the conscious victim story. Because people love to be a victim. They love to be a victim because it's easier. They believe anyway that it's easier to be a victim. And that's not helpful, nor does it lead to the most fulfilling life that you could have. So anyway, back to Reverend Ike. I was listening to like one of his sermons, and again, he preached about like wealth. And like he said, the one I was just listening to was like, do you believe that you are worthy of $1 million? Like, if you believe that you are worthy of $1 million and you deserve $1 million, then $1 million has no choice but to come to you. And this very seemingly like easy, simple concept is not so easily simple concept when you look up and you like, oh, well, I don't have $1 million and I think that I'm worthy of $1 million. So where's my $1 million? But the difficult part about being in alignment with that $1 million is our thought process and our thought patterns. So we tend to take on these thought patterns that have been taught to us through demonstration. So the adults in our lives, as we grew up as kids, we adopted their thought patterns as our own. And then we hear people within our community and our society pretty much reinforce those things. So money doesn't grow on trees. Um, we don't have money for that. What do you think, that we rich? Um, I can't afford that. My job doesn't pay me enough. And it's all of these things, an accumulation of things that we've been taught either directly or indirectly in our lives that then shape how we think about money. One of those things also is a lot of people are afraid of letting go of their jobs. And I'm going to bring this back full circle around why this connection between metaphysics and religion is extremely important. And so people are afraid to leave their jobs. And it doesn't matter how religious they are, how many times they've read the Bible and believe that they understand what the passages and parables say. None of that matters because we say a lot of things or we participate in a lot of things that we don't actually believe in. And so we don't demonstrate it in our lives. So I'm not knocking people who work jobs. I'm not. What I'm saying is that it says in several passages in the Bible, basically, that God is your endless supply. I shall not want, right? That your Father takes care of all your needs and wants. If this is true, which I 1000% wholeheartedly believe is true, then we end up then giving so much of our power over to a limited source because your job is a limited source. It only can give you as much as it has agreed to give you. And then, of course, you run the possibility of receiving raises or bonuses, but that's it. But if you truly believe that God is your endless and infinite supply and that you shall not want for anything, then it's kind of safe to say that you could walk away from a job if you believe and put all of your trust and faith in the higher power that we claim to believe in. And so, again, there are several passages that even talk about you can't serve two masters, meaning you can't have it both ways. You can't say that you believe a thing, but then demonstrate it differently. And there's a spiritual law called the law of demonstration. Now, that's metaphysics. What I just described about the Bible, that would fall under religion. And metaphysics, which is around spiritual law, these spiritual laws initially came out of Kemet, ancient Egypt. And this particular law, the law of demonstration, says that if you claim to believe a thing, there will come a time where you'll be called to demonstrate that thing. So if you are saying out loud through your heart, I trust God, I trust God, I trust God. He's my infinite supply, she my infinite supply. However you term God, universe, Allah, Jehovah, Almighty. If you say this out loud and to yourself, then people call them tests. They say, I'm being tested. But you'll be called to demonstrate what you say you believe. And the test is not for anyone else but you. The test is, and I don't even like calling it a test, but I'm just using common language to describe what many of us all have said at several points of time in our lives, like, oh, I'm being tested right now. And to an extent you are. It's really just a law of demonstration calling on you to, in practical and physical terms, demonstrate what you claim to believe. So, how many times have you passed that test? How many times were you able to actually demonstrate what you claim to believe? Has it been more times than not? And when I say a job, that's just an example and something that everybody can relate to in a degree. Because at some point in time, most people have worked a job. And then there's a ton of people who have walked away from their jobs and really stepped out on faith. It was just like, well, I can't do this no more. So I don't have a choice but to walk out on faith and trust what I claim to believe. This is the day that I get out here and walk on water. Another passage or scene that we have in our minds vividly that Jesus walked on water, right? You trusting and leaving behind the things that you have come to know and are comfortable with. Jesus was comfortable on land. I mean, land is a sure thing. It's right beneath you. Every step you take out, you know that it'll be there underneath your feet. Walking on water, not so sure if I trust that. But essentially, when you take a leap of faith, like he did, and you have no idea if you're going to sink or swim or be able to keep your balance on top of this water, this is the law of demonstration. This is the test. This is when it comes up to say, do I really believe in what I claim that I believe in? So, over the last week or so, I have spoken to a couple of colleagues who I know are well versed in biblical knowledge and maybe not so much as metaphysics, but certainly biblical knowledge. One person I spoke of certainly had an understanding of metaphysics because if you listen to or have read any works by Abraham Hicks, Eckhart Tolle, Bob Proctor, Les Brown says so much about metaphysics and biblical knowledge within his lectures. And it probably can go over your head because it went over my head for some time and I've been listening to Les Brown for years. But because I've been more intently focused on this idea between the marriage of metaphysics and religion, and I want to say in particular Christianity, but then I kind of don't want to put a label on it. It's more so just the Bible and the teachings in the Bible. This parallel between universal law and Jesus' teachings is so in alignment with one another. It shocked me back into this full circle moment because I broke up with the church a long time ago because the questions that I had about Jesus' teachings, which made sense to me, nobody could answer those questions. And so nobody was able to validate what I was thinking around what Jesus was actually saying and teaching. And that turned me off from the church because I thought that the people there were the experts and that they would know what Jesus meant and some of the disciples, some of the other books, of course, throughout the Bible. And so when that didn't happen for me, I thought, okay, I'm in the wrong place because I understand this in a way that I don't receive any validation from. And I'm young, like young. I'm talking about like from like 8 years old. because I used to go to Bible study. And as I got older and I believe I started understanding a bit more, there still was not anybody to validate me. In fact, not that we need anybody validation because our intuition tells us, and that's what I believe was happening to me at those particular times, that my intuition was talking to me and saying like, "Hey, this is actually what these words meant." So, what it did was put me on this journey of plainly seeking spiritual knowledge apart from any religion. I had been to um Jehovah Witnesses Kingdom Halls. I had been to mosques. I had been to Catholic churches. I had been to Methodist churches. I have been to a number of religions and or their denominations. Um, I even, again, being at a mosque and being around Muslims. So I still did not have the understanding that I felt like would soothe me in terms of reconciling my thoughts around metaphysics and these different um, religions. Hold on one second. Jalen, I'm recording. Turn that off. Thank you. So I went along this journey of being involved with other aspects of spirituality that felt in alignment with me. And I landed at a temple that was focused on Kemetic teachings, which is the teachings coming out of ancient Egypt. And those teachings absolutely aligned with everything that I was thinking and feeling around how to operate in this physical realm. And I participated with that for some time, and I had a regular spiritual practice. And so it wasn't until, I'm saying very recently, where I was forced in a way to kind of revisit the Bible. And when I say forced, I mean from a spiritual ascension standpoint. Like, I went through a very intense spiritual ascension. I was sick for like 3 weeks. I never I never get sick. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't the flu. I got tested for it was, and I knew, actually I knew immediately as soon as I started feeling the symptoms. I said, I'm having and going through a spiritual ascension because it's a different feeling. It's a different type of sick feeling. Like it wasn't the cold or flu. It was like everything about my body was like changing from the inside out. It was almost like my body was like replacing itself, and on every level. And so when I came out of that, I had like a total 180. I was traveling back to Cleveland, and I was on a road for hours. And what started playing in the car was a audiobook by a lady named Florence Scovel Shinn. And Florence wrote several books. She was born in the late 1800s, I think 1871. And she used to do these talks in New York City where she lived, and she was a metaphysician. It was the first time I had read or listened to something that connected the words of Jesus to metaphysical principles. It's the first time. It's the first time I had ever heard it. And it was like mind blowing because it then brought me back to when I was 8 years old in church asking questions. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is all I wanted to know. This is all my young mind was trying to make sense of at this time. That Jesus was saying these words and these teachings, and I was trying to figure out how that showed up in real life, and so I then started kind of going down this path of, okay, well, let me match up some more what Jesus was saying, some of the other books, of course, throughout, and the people throughout the Bible, what they were saying, what they said God was saying. And I was like, well, I'll be doggone. This is from Kemet, the universal laws and principles. And I thought about attending seminary school. And so that I regularly had classes and teachings around the Bible again because I'm now getting reacclimated with it. And the program I was looking to go into, they have a master's in particular for Black church studies. And they have guest professors who are Black pastors, some of whom names I recognize from my area. But I was like, man, I would actually prefer to not go to the to take the Black church studies program. I would rather take the regular one. Um, and here's why. For those who know me and have watched some of my content either on this platform or just know the work that I've done for a good portion of my life, I had been very hell bent on waking Black people up, so to speak, like helping Black people see a different perspective, helping Black people through services and empowerment and enlightenment. That's what I thought I was doing. I actually came to realize that the only way you actually can help people is by being a demonstration yourself. And essentially, that's what Jesus was doing. Jesus was being a demonstration. And everybody thought that he was this mystical, magical being, which in many ways he was, because he was just so connected to source, so connected to God, source energy. And so he had access to all of the joys and miracles and greatness that life has to offer because he was so connected to himself, to God, to source energy. And even though we tend to worship Jesus, he was a real person. He was a real man. his name wasn't Jesus, it was Yahweh or Yahshua. I don't know. I'm learning still. But the point is, we say that he was the Son of God. And then we also say that we are God's children. Yet we don't put ourselves on the same level or playing field as another human being as Jesus. So, what does God call worshiping someone outside of Him? And if we understand that God source energy, God is you and you are God, then we have to maybe understand that it's self, it's you. You are the only answer to every problem in your life. You are the only solution to what you need to change. You are the only thing that you can believe in. That's it. God is just you. And so it's you and God co creating together. So it goes back to the law of demonstration. And when I heard Reverend Ike today saying what he was saying, but then he also was, of course, referencing God, I was like, man, was anybody listening to this man? Yes, no, maybe he had an audience, but there were like so many more people who praised Jesus, and Jesus actually says this, like in the Bible, in his version. And I'm working on learning exactly the scriptures and verbatim what the word says. But he basically said that these people worship me and praise me, but they do not follow what I teach. Makes so much sense. But the Black pastors in our community, my opinion, they haven't done a great job at being a third party and articulating and bridging that gap between what we don't know and what we could know as it relates to the teachings and how to apply them to your life. And this is why I said that I would be better positioned going to a seminary school that was focused on regular church and society because it wouldn't make me feel more or less in alignment to specifically study Black church studies because I don't believe that Black church has interpreted the Bible in a way that has been very helpful for Black people. And it's not the pastor's fault because everybody has self responsibility and accountability to know these things. Like I wasn't taught this by a pastor or a reverend. I wasn't taught this in a Black church. In fact, like I said, I broke up with the Black church because I did not learn this and I was asking questions about this. And so if the third party doesn't understand the connection between the spiritual world and what's in a text in the Bible, then what are we what are we doing? We rely so heavily on our physical existence to solve for problems that we have on a spiritual level. And when I say spiritual level, spiritual is like your intuition and your guidance, and your intuition is connected to your heart, your emotional level, your desires, what drives you, and to our mental capacity, our ability to interpret what we feel in a way that makes sense. So there's intellect, imagination, and intuition. Intellect being mind, imagination being what it is that your soul envisions for you, and intuition, of course, being your heart. What do you feel? So I felt the nudge to come on here and just give a word about this connection between metaphysics and religion. And God willing, I will be able to do this regularly. I am so committed to doing this. um, so that I do even teach about what metaphysics, I'm sorry, that I teach what metaphysics actually is. And I hate putting labels on things because it takes away from the essence and it takes away from the point of it all because the title of it is not even important. Religion, that title is not important. Metaphysics, that title isn't important. It's just a way to categorize things and break them down, but just please don't be blinded by the labels. I mean, once you understand metaphysics and that philosophy, that branch of philosophy, because it's a philosophical branch, then you will maybe come to the understanding that Jesus was a master metaphysician. Like he had mastered metaphysics. And that's why he appeared to be so magical. The catch 22 is everybody has the same access. Everybody is able to be in true connection to God, source energy, 100% in connection. But it's so much that we don't know. And then what we do know, we don't understand it enough to connect the dots. And for those who do want to listen, I'm like so here to share. In some past videos, I talked about the 3D, 4D, and 5D. The 5D is God. That is the highest consciousness that you can achieve. That's dynamic thought. That's the spiritual laws. That is all of the things that we have within ourselves, all the tools that we have within ourselves. 4D being the intermediary between 3D and 5D, which are tools that help us connect ourselves to the 5D from the 3D level. So that's things like yoga, Reiki, astrology, tarot. Um, these are all energy source, energy based practices. And then the 3D is our everyday physical world, the education system, a job, a career, employment, the justice system, the government, titles of nobility. It's all of these things, institutions that we as humans have constructed to, I'm smiling, to create order. Humans are hilarious. I love them. Humans created these things to create order when nothing was in disorder, nothing was out of order before humans came in to try to put things in order. Everything was perfect. That's hilarious because we know that that is not in order. It's actually in disorder. But that's okay because we can get it in order, but it literally will take everybody to want to be in true alignment with themselves and true alignment with God. And that's not going to happen with everybody because not everybody even believe in God. Not everybody um, believes in these labels, you know. So it's all about you and your own individual journey and what you want to get out of your journey. So, yep, that's all I have to say tonight. I'll be back if I feel compelled.